Amen. This morning, I'd like to use the book of 1 Samuel chapter 1 to open the topic with us on Mother's Day. I'd just like to read one verse because in the interest of time, I won't read from the scriptures or the entire book this morning. And 1 Samuel chapter 19, 1 Samuel 1 and 1 Samuel chapter 1 and verse 19 says, Then they rose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came to their house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah, his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So it came to pass in the process of time, Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked the Lord for him from the Lord. Because I've asked for him from the Lord. May the Lord bless the reading of his word. Quickly, Mother's Day, I have done a little bit of research, and I see a couple of people who have the beginning or who where Mother's Day have some infancy. And there was one particular woman or one particular instant or movement that stood out to me, and that was the one that I saw in the US of A in 1861 to 1865. There was a woman by the name of Anna Reeves Jarvis. Now, what she had done during that time, 1861 to 1865, was when you had the brutal Civil War in the United States. And during that time, during war, it is always women and children who suffer the most, or the non-combatants. And so what she did, she actually formed a movement to help mothers and children during those years. She later on went on, after the war in 1868, to actually introduce a Mother's Day friendship. This was to help the warring factions because people who were neighbors became enemies and fought against each other. So she helped to form this movement to help them to bond together or to reconcile after the war. And so that was the one that stood out most to me. And she had a daughter by the name of Anne Reeves Jarvis. Anna, her daughter's name was. And after her mother died in 1905, she sought of a way to remembers mothers and their sacrifice that they have given. And so in 1908, she in fact chose a Sunday to honor mothers. And that Sunday was in May. And so this was used in many states to honor mothers. Back then what it was that children would go home to where they came from to visit their mother's church and to really honor mothers. Through her advocacy by 1914, the President of the United States then, Woodrow Wilson, proclaimed the second Sunday in May to be Mother's Day. And that was what this lady had conceived. Anna had conceived this to be a family day for mothers. Not what Hallmark and the florists consider now, and we have this whole commercialized thing. Sometimes people don't even remember the mothers when they send all these flowers and these cards. And so I say to you this morning is that don't buy into this thing about the commercialization of Mother's Day. That's not what it's about. A sad ending to that story was that before this lady died, she actually spent most of her resource lobbying Congress to have Mother's Day abolished because she was so distraught about what it came out to be because that was not what it was meant to be in the first place. Amen? Proverbs 23 and verse 22 says, Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she's old. There is this fashion on the other side of the Atlantic for those of us who are from the West, where people, black people in particular, they have grand funerals. And they have, all this lavish funeral, particularly for the parents when they die. And sometimes they don't even give the mother a flower during her life. I said to you this morning, give it to her now. Don't wait until then you try to have a grand time for you and your friends. Remember your mother, no, because this is what Proverbs says, okay? Now, mothers are women who have given birth, and we have heard many definitions or things said about mothers this morning, who have given birth and raised their children. Or we say they have raised and cared for them. Example, fostering, as we have heard. Some have supplied their ovum for fertilization, or a combination of the above. And what we mention here, this is not all, because we know we have social, cultural, and religious role for mothers. The Collins Dictionary simply says a female parent. Not me, that was the Collins Dictionary, so I'm not trying not to be politically correct, if you're recording me. Words that come to mind when I speak and think of mothers are words like caring, loving, discipline, training, nurture, protect. I saw one mother this morning when we had the birthday celebration. She couldn't see her son. And man, was she looking around in panic. I won't call any names. Now, those are some of the words that come to my mind. And even as saying this, I think of God the Father. He's this, all the words I've mentioned, he's this and more to us. And I think particularly this morning, I remember those who have lost their mothers and those mothers who have lost children. And I say to you this morning that the God of peace and comfort remembers you, and he wants to take you to another level. He wants you to be mothers for others, and he wants you, and there is a mother waiting for you this morning who have lost your mother. The Bible never said that every woman should be a mother. However, it does say that those whom the Lord blessed to be mothers should take the responsibility seriously. Psalm 127 verse 3 and Proverbs 22:6 speaks of that. Motherhood is a unique and crucial role in the lives of children. So motherhood is not an unpleasant task or a chore. Just as mothers bear a child during pregnancy, likewise during caring and infancy, so mothers play an ongoing role through adolescence, through teenage years, through to young adulthood, and even into adulthood. And while the role of motherhood changes and develops, the love, care, nurture, and encouragement of a mother never changes. A mother is for life. Amen? Amen. Isaiah 49 and verse 15, it says, "Can a woman forget her suckling, that she should not have compassion?" Bob used the same words. He says, "Can a woman tender care cease towards the child she bear?" This afternoon, we want to appreciate mothers with many love, hugs, and kisses. To all those that we have with us here in the house this morning, and particularly those who have never been in a labor ward, but they have been mothers for many, the mothers of Zion. We love you for watching over us. I'd like to encourage and challenge mothers and the rest of us here this morning, because if you're listening to me this morning, it means that you have a mother. You didn't come by the stock. Amen? Sometimes in the past, I was told that the stock brought me here. And I'd like to use Hannah as the example. Let me quickly, because time is going, because I'd just like to use Hannah as the example this morning. And Hannah, a wise investor. We said that people who invest in stocks do so with the hope and intention of making a profit. And so this sometimes doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes they lose and they've lost some of the money. Sometimes they've lost everything. But we know that every action and every attitude, every activity is an investment in something, and it will reap dividend either to the glory of God or to the flesh. This passage presents to us a woman by the name of Hannah. She is presented as a woman who was a shrewd investor in her life. She made a wise investment that continued to reap dividends down to this very day. I'd like for us to take a glimpse of Hannah's portfolio this afternoon. And I want to point to areas where she made wise investments, and I want to encourage you to make the same or similar investment in your life this morning that Hannah made in her life. And that we examine Hannah, a great woman of faith, and we say Hannah, a wise investor. Proverbs 14 verse 1, it says, the wise woman builds her house, but with her own hands the foolish one tears hers down. Sad. 1 Samuel chapter 1, I'll use portions from this, and 1 Samuel chapter 2. We'll look through the entire portion as I go along from 1 Samuel. I encourage you to read this when you go home and try to gather or grasp this story. And in a nutshell, it is about a woman named Hannah who was barren, and she prayed to the Lord and promised him and vowed to give him back for the Lord's service. And he grew to become a mighty man of God. Hannah invested her life in family in spite of the fact that circumstances weren't pleasant as they should have been in her home. Yet she persevered to make the investment in the family she loved. And we said that Hannah invested in spite of difficulty. In verses 1 and 2 of chapter 1, right from the beginning, we see and we learn that Hannah was married to a man with 2 wives. And this is the recipe for disaster. Yet Hannah was not looking for an exit. She stayed in the family and she worked to make the best of a bad situation. Note here, God never said that family would be easy or to be an easy place to live. Families are great and they are wonderful, but every one of them are filled with people. And therein lies the potential for disaster. There will be discouraged, there will be disagreements rather, and there will be trouble. But the secret lies in not running away. Learn to make investment in your family, regardless of the difficulties you face in life. And in this society, and what we know, it has gotten too easy to walk away. And we said this morning that God's people need to learn the truth that marriage and family is a lifetime investment. Amen? So she invested in spite of discouragement. Verses 5 and 6 shows that her husband had another wife by the name of Peninnah. She had children, but Hannah was barren. And here we can see that she used Hannah's barrenness as a means to ridicule her. She mocked Hannah and made her life miserable. It seems to me that we also detect a hint of jealousy from out of these verses, because it tells us that Elkanah loved Hannah. Apparently she was his favorite, and he showed. But one thing here is that Peninnah, however, could give her husband Elkanah something that Hannah could not give to him, namely children. And she used this as leverage in the household to mock Hannah. And here's where Hannah's discouragement came in. And all the criticism and belittling made life practically impossible for this woman. But what? She continued to invest in her family in spite of this. And what a testimony this is this morning, saints. Family can be like that sometimes. Of course, and I hope there is no one involved in polygamy here. And that is not what I'm speaking of. But I'm referring to discouragement that crops up in the family from time to time or in the home. Mothers at times feel they are unappreciated, taken for granted, and the work never ends. Is that so? Yeah. I don't know. It sounds like that is not so. Sometimes mothers get discouraged by their fellow family members in what they say or do. But discouragement is no reason to close the door on family. No, you continue to invest in the life of the people you love, the people you have around you. You love them, regardless of what the situation is. I know that you love them. Knowing that in due course, you will reap a harvest for God's glory. Amen? Mothers, you may feel defeated. Some probably won't. You may feel discouraged with the way things are going with your family. Let me encourage you. Keep investing. You may never see the result you want, but there's a biblical principle that speaks to this very need today. Galatians 6 and verse 7. It says, be not deceived. What? God is not? Amen. So serve wholeheartedly as unto the Lord, not as unto men. When we sow the right things, we will reap the right harvest. Keep investing in people's lives and leave the harvest to the hand of God. He never fails. Despite of desperation, we knew that she wanted a child. She didn't have one, and this was one thing that she wanted. This was one gift that she wanted to give to her husband. So this made life, very discouraging for her, and she was somewhat desperate. And no matter what she do, she herself couldn't change the situation. It's only by pleading to the God of Israel that her situation could change. But what Hannah knew was that God had a plan for her life. And his plans wasn't to hurt her, but his plans was to amaze her, but in his time. The plans that God has for us are good. And we know that because Jeremiah 29:11 says that. And Romans 8:28 says that all things work together for good for those that love the Lord, who are called according to his purpose. It may appear that the investment you make in your family are not paying off at this present time. It may look like your spouse and your children are not all you planned and prayed and hoped for that they would be. If that is the case, let me encourage you to keep investing. The closing bell hasn't rung yet. Only Jesus can ring it. Your family is too important for you to stop investing in their life or stop investing in them. It may seem like you do all the giving and receive none of the getting. But for those who make wise investment in their families, their dividends come at unexpected times and in marvelous ways. I'm just trying to encourage you to keep investing in your family. Amen? And we said that she was a woman who made investment in her faith. And we know that her faith was personal, as we saw in verses 10 and 11. And if we look in chapter 2, verses 1 to 10, in these verses we see a woman who knew the Lord on a personal level. Her prayer and praise, through her prayer and praise. She had a personal relationship with the God of Israel. She was a believer, and she was openly and actively practicing her faith. And that is what is important for us as mothers here, is to openly practice your faith. Let your children see that you pray. Here we see that Hannah never prayed for 2 or 3 kids. Hannah prayed for 1. She asked for a male child, just 1, and I will give him back to the Lord. What faith! She knew God would yield the increase, so she invested wisely. And I asked this morning if you know the greatest gift that you can give to your family, the knowledge that you are saved and you have a personal relationship with God. Not just a casual brushing up against the things of God, but a real and vital relationship with him that controls the way you live your life every single day. Nothing in time or eternity is as important as your personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And be sure you make that investment and let your family see it, that you have a faith in Jesus Christ. Her faith was practical. So we say it was personal and we say it was practical. In her prayer and in her dialogue with Eli, we see Hannah was a woman who possessed a practical faith in God. She didn't just know about him. She knew him and trusted him for all she needed. She learned to lean upon him and trust him for all impossibilities in her life. She just didn't talk about her faith in God. She fleshed it out by the way she lived. People may say things about you because they don't understand what you are going through. Eli thought Hannah was drunk as she poured out her heart to God. I said to you this morning, don't watch people's face. Keep trusting God in pureness of heart and in deeds. He, my dear friends, will come through in time for you. He will change your barren situation and yield a bountiful harvest. Nothing makes an investment in the lives of others around us like a genuine life lived for the glory of God. A practical faith is a proclaiming faith, and it always points others to Jesus Christ. Make an investment in faith and live it out day by day that your family can see it. Profound her faith was, and we know it was because more than anything else, Hannah wanted a child, and she wanted to give that gift to her husband and experience the fulfillment of motherhood. She knew this was impossible apart from the work of the Lord, so she believed God for the impossibilities in her life and promised the incredible to God. You can imagine, give me one and I'll give him back. She asked for a son, and she promised to give him back to God's glory. Hannah's faith was no superficial faith. She had depth of faith, and that is rare in this world. And what a blessing it is when we come to that place as investors. In faith, we know that we can trust God for the impossibilities in our situation and in our lives and willingly give everything to him for his glory. And that is the kind of faith that God is looking to develop in you as mothers this morning and the rest of us. And we see that God is not slack concerning his promises, because we saw in verses 19 and 20, the Bible said that when she returned, her husband knew her and she conceived in time. That is what God will do. He promised the impossible. So here she was now. Her tormentor seemed not to have much to torment her about again. Now, Hannah, she served, or she invested, finally, as I close here, through the length of her commitment. So she wasn't in it for short term. She was in it for the long haul. Hannah made the ultimate commitment a mother could make. She totally gave her child to the Lord. She held nothing back. She committed him to the Lord before he was conceived. She dedicated him to the Lord when he was born, and she gave him to the Lord when he was weaned. Hers was not a momentary commitment, but it was a once-for-all commitment, for which she never looked back. She sowed the seed that would be reaped for generations. And that way I say that because imagine how hard it must have been for her. I mean, some of us, when we take our child to school and leave them for the first time, it is so heartbreaking. Imagine she took him to the tabernacle and she left him and she went home. Imagine how she must have anticipated those yearly trips as she go up to visit him and she took things for him. Imagine how her heart broke as she left him each year. But imagine as she watched him develop into a man of God. She was seeing her investment pay off. It was worth the sacrifice. Investing in family is a sacrifice. It pains, but there is a harvest. There is a reward. Amen? Some of you have children. Some of you have children that need to be placed on the altar this morning. And I ask the question, how long has it been since you have, with broken heart, come before the Lord and agonize before him for their souls? Maybe they're out there today partly because of the inconsistencies they have witnessed in your life. It could be the other way. Maybe they're out there because they rejected the faith you exhibited. Regardless of why they're out there, they need someone praying for them. And we need moms, and I won't let dads escape either, and dads who will be broken-hearted for their children and bring them to the altar before God. Finally, through the life of her child, she invested. In verses 21 and 28 and 2:26, Hannah presented her son to Samuel. By the grace of God, he became a mighty man of God. He set a standard of righteousness for the nation of Israel. He was a man greatly used of the Lord. He was a man who was anointed. He was a man who anointed King David. He was the man who served as a spiritual leader for Israel for many years. He was the man he was because of the investment his mother made in his life before he was born and during those early years. Because she made that kind of investment, an entire nation was blessed for many years. In fact, Hannah's investment in Samuel continued to reap dividends to this day. Because this morning, as you are being fed and as people are being blessed as they hear the story of Hannah, her investment continues to reap dividends. And that is what it is. And that is what you should be looking, or the kind of dividends you should be looking to reap. And this morning I say, some of you this morning are making that same investment in the future. You bring your children to the house of God on Sundays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and even Saturdays for some of us. You bring them when it isn't easy or convenient. It can be. You're instilling in them the idea that God's house is an important place to be. Amen? You're teaching them that right and wrong do matters. You are teaching them about Jesus Christ. You are teaching them the important lessons of life. They are learning the lessons from watching your faith. You may think they aren't seeing much, and you may think they aren't getting the message, but one day you will see the investment pay off in glorious dividends in the lives of your children. So keep investing in them and remain faithful, and the Lord will bless your efforts. I want to invite the choir to come back as we close. And I said this morning, remember, God knows of the barren situations in your life. He knows your tormentors. In faith like Hannah, cry out to him. Don't watch people's face. The God of grace will bring conception in your barren situation. Continue to invest wisely. Planting is never easy work. Tilling the soil and sowing the seed, it's hard work. But keep your side of the bargain. God will keep his. Hannah had 3 more sons, not just the one that she gave over. She had 3 more sons and 2 daughters. This morning, God wants to increase your portfolio with good stocks. So give him a chance. Let's get honest for a few minutes. I know that Hannah made the right investment in her family, in faith, and in the future. She exhibited a life of faith that is a cut above the ordinary. However, what she did is a challenge to you and I this morning. What kind of investments are you making in the lives of those around you? Whether you know it or not, you're investing every day you live. What kind of dividends will those investments pay in return? I say this morning to you, remember that child could be the next Samuel, he could be the next Obama. I don't know. I say to you this morning, I encourage you to keep doing what it is that you know the Lord has called you to do. If you're a mother, it means that he has placed in your care. And as parents, that is what we have to do. So in closing this morning, I say to you, keep investing and invest in those around you and those that you love. But remember also that if you have bad stocks and bonds in your portfolio, you can get rid of it because Jesus Christ, he has already gotten rid of that at the cross. And so you can come this morning and hand those bad investments and start anew. He is the God that loves to take the vessel that is marred and mold it back into a vessel of honor so you can serve with honor for his grace. Amen.